Hey folks, my name is Kevin and it's time for a little bit more knife nerdery. I'm really excited about this one because what's in here is the Gen 2 prototype. Prototype's plural, I think there's two in here, of a brand new knife that's about to drop. But let me get this opened up so you can at least look at the knife while you hear me ramble. Sent my way indirectly by Left EDC. It's not his knife though. I don't know what ROE Knives is. That's a Brian Brown Knives logo. It's not from either of those folks either. Let's finally get these out. Ooh. Ooh, yeah. Oh, that's a nice flick. Okay, so what is this? This is the DeVille by Grain Designs. If you're not familiar with who that is, it's a guy named Justin Brantley. And if you don't recognize his name, either the brand name or his personal name, then it's probably because this is the first knife that he has brought to the market. Although he has been working on this and a couple others for a while now, so it's not going to be the last knife he brought to the market. If you do recognize his name, it's probably for the incredible leatherwork he does. Grain Designs has been putting out a lot of really amazing leather products across a wide spectrum of stuff, but he's probably best known for his wallets, the stitching and like finishing work, like the edge work he does in them. Oh my God, exceptional. But he's been working on these knives for a while now. And I mentioned that these are the Gen 2 prototypes. I actually got to check out the Gen 1 prototypes. And before that, I got to go through all of the CAD files with Justin before he even had any prototypes made and walk through all the little details and get stuff dialed in and tweaked in before he actually had Best Tech, that's who's making this knife, produce a prototype for him. I then got to check out the Gen 1 prototypes late last year, and it's incredibly cool now to have these Gen 2s in hand because for one, there's been some significant changes that happened across all these different versions, and for two, this is effectively the finished product. This is, for all intents and purposes, what you're going to get. There's very small changes, namely to this pivot here, but basically, this is what's going to be dropping very, very soon. It's fair to say that I have been following this knife for a while, and it is, ooh, yeah, this is an exceptionally cool knife. Just so that my phone has something singular to focus on, I'm going to put that one out of the way for now. I'm also going to wipe off this blade. Okay, let's start off by talking about the aesthetics of this knife. That name DeVille is indeed a reference to the Cadillac DeVille, and the kind of lines and inspiration of this originally came from that classic Cadillac model, especially the blade part and trying to draw off of the lines towards like the hood as it transitions into the front windows of the car. But what we're left with now is an incredibly stylized knife with really strong angles, really strong lines, and something that I would argue is an aggressive style of knife without looking at all like a weapon. It's a mean looking blade, but it doesn't look scary in the same way. It just has very assertive styling, a very neat look to this. Overall, I think that the lines here are really, really cool. I'm sure there will be people out there that will point to some aspect of this and say, hey, that looks like some other knife, as people are wont to do. But to me, when I look at this knife, this doesn't look like something I've seen already, and that is a really, really cool feeling. Sometimes when you see a knife that you've never seen before, it's because it looks freaking weird and kind of bad. This looks really, really neat. It just looks stylized and unique enough that there's not really anything else quite like it on the market. And I do think that the lines here, the specific angles, and the way that they're echoed into the back end of the knife, it really holds together well. There are curves in places that you would want them to be for ergonomic reasons, but this is a largely angular knife, and it's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but boy, is this a cool looking knife. So if you are into these kinds of aggressive angular patterns, and I am, I think this knife is going to really, really appeal to you. Let's start off talking about this blade. I don't have specific measurements on most of these things. I do have the CAD file pulled up, or at least that means like the blueprint version that he sent to me. And so I have some of the dimensions here. Like I know that this, from this top point to this outer tip, is apparently 3.13 inches, and it's just a little bit short of that for the like sharpened distance, because that's slightly up. So this is, about a 3 1/8 inch blade. So it's not a terribly long blade, but this is a 4.74 inch handle. And so this is one of those things that, even though it's not a very long blade at all by any means, this is going to work for people with really big hands, as well as people like me, Yeah, this fits my medium glove size hands perfectly. And there's so many positions where this feels wonderful in. So if you're the type of person that hears a little over 3-inch blade and gets scared off, this can be a small knife. It does not feel like a small knife. It also is not a skinny knife. It's not overly thick. I don't have that dimension, so I'm just gonna measure it right now. Try to find the thickest spot right about there. Yeah, we're just over 1/2 inch there. So this is not a thin, dainty knife. It's instead the kind of thing that really fills up your hand, and it feels so good in hand. This blade stock, yeah, that's another one that I don't think I have. I think it's 4mm, but let me check. Yeah, 0.1567. So this is the kind of thing where the blade stock is thicker than I typically go for on an EDC knife, but what we have is a really tall, very aggressive hollow. Although honestly, one of the things that he said that he was thinking of trying to push for in the final production version compared to this prototype is to make the hollow potentially even more aggressive. But as is, this is the kind of knife that's going to cut really, really well through stuff that splays easily. So like all standard cardboard splays easily enough that this tall hollow grind is going to melt through it like butter. And importantly, though, this is one of the big things that changed. So the spine of this was kept thick enough that this is extremely comfortable to put a lot of force down on. In the Gen 1 prototype, Bestech had brought this into the point where this got kind of skinny at the tip right here, and it didn't feel super great. But that was something he pushed hard to have changed for the next versions, and he pulled it off perfectly. This end top part, which is narrower than the full thickness down here, it gives you the look of a swedge, because it is one, but it gives you thick enough spot at the top that, like I said, it is so comfortable to actually put a lot of force on this. And so that's what this is ultimately trying to be, a utility work knife, something that you can do fantastic utility cuts with and really push through stuff with a pretty good amount of force. And it's going to feel great in your hand while you do it and feel great against your thumb. That's something that a lot of people get wrong when they put a swedge on the top. And so I was really, really pleased to see this came out that way. What else happened? Oh yeah. So So one of the changes between Gen 1 and Gen 2 is this chamfer along the top and this chamfer along the bottom. All of this got evened out now. And so this this looks perfect. How does this feel? Ooh. Yeah. That's really, really good. So this is the kind of thing where, okay, so this is the kind of thing that's not scraping up my fingernail, but it is also not so sharp that it hurts to push the meat of my finger against. So whether or not you're the type of person that likes to flick like this or like this, both of them feel really, really good. Ooh, and thumb flicking is so easy to do too. Yeah, also because of this really aggressive fuller that comes all the way to the bottom, you can do the kind of flicking all the way down here as well. Oh, I really, really like that. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that he pushed hard for was for them to do a better job on the plunge grind. OEMs across the board kind of suck at doing these plunge grinds. Even when you tell them exactly what you want to do, they have a really hard time on hollow grinds specifically, pulling this far enough back that it doesn't come down here and smile. And you can see that this one is ending right about there. On the very first Gen 1, it was ending down here. So on the Gen 2, it's ending right about there. Now, it could be better. It could be all the way up like here or something like that. And that's what he wants. That's what he's pushed for. That's what it is in the CAD. If he can get them to do it on the final production version, great. If he can't, he's not going to be alone at all. So many knives have this way because Bestech, Riot, all of them, they suck at doing plunge grinds for some reason. I don't know. But again, it's typically on the hollow ground knives. The finishes here, I'm not sure exactly what finishes he's going to go with on the actual, like what variation he's going to go with, but this is really, really cool looking. So this is like a hand satin, linear satin along the flat, which is only this portion right there. And then we have this really nice belt satin down here. And then we have a different hand satin at a different angle coming along the top up here. And finally, we have a bead blast finish on this inside part. And so you get a lot of textural difference as you go over this. And one of the things I think is cool is that the chamfer in here either looks light, like a glowing line, or dark, like a shadow line. And so you get a neat kind of shadow boxing effect as you go around that. It's just Such a cool looking knife. Oh yeah, they fixed the little micro chamfers everywhere. These were the things that were missing in the one round of prototypes. And this is the kind of thing. So partly, one of the reasons why Justin asked me to go through all of the like CAD files with him is because he knows I'm this kind of nitpicky, attention to detail type person, but so is he. And so all of these little tiny details all over this knife are the kind of things that he has been meticulously poring over. And so the end product here, this feels so good. Let's move back to this handle a little bit. We've got, this is a bolster lock. So we've got our full pieces of titanium going all the way around that have been cut out and thinned out so that you have an overlay put down on top. And that, I love bolster locks. First of all, I just think it's a cool look. It's always been a cool look, but it means that you get these like lighter, springier lock bars. We'll talk about lock bar tension and how that's changed as we go. But I think it just looks really nice. But one of the things that people can get wrong when they do bolster locks is the transition angles and everything like that around this portion right here. Because the lock bar, when it moves over, it's exposing this portion. And so some people will have like a straight line coming up like this, and it creates this little tiny point that sticks up. So one of the things that Justin has done is made this angled back downward, which means this corner is a very, very obtuse angle. So even if this was left pointy, it wouldn't feel sharp the way that like an acute angle would. But importantly, he's pushed to have little tiny chamfers done this entire way, and a pretty significant chamfer right here. And so this feels nice and round. There's no sharp angle anywhere here. They did a really, really good job with that. I think in general, as bolsters go, a lot of bolsters are just kind of like a straight line like that. And so this angular design here, in addition to echoing other angles on the knife, just looks cool. It's again a knife that I haven't seen before, and it's not the exact same angles that are elsewhere. So it's compatible, but it feels like this really obtuse thing is getting a little bit more acute and getting a little bit more acute, and it kind of feels like it's flowing as it goes back. It's just, I think it's really cool looking. The materials here itself is some kind of not brand name swirly carbon fiber. So it's obviously meant to compete with like something like Fat Carbon's dark matter line, but it's something that Bestech is offering now. And the thing is, I hate to say this because I love Fat Carbon and I want them to succeed in life, but I feel like Bestech, whoever is making this material, is kind of beating Fat Carbon at their own game with this. At least especially on this blue. Let me go grab a different blue and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is blue dark matter Fat Carbon. And this is actually one of the best examples I've ever seen in terms of concentration of blue. With their other colors, like their yellow, or I think might call it gold, they do a much, much better job. And this is actually very, very similar to Fat Carbon's yellowy gold one. But with the blue, for some reason, there's very little blue in it. And this one, like I said, has quite a bit. Like you can see all the blue right here. But you see how on the back, like this entire top portion basically has no blue whatsoever? This is something that is unfortunately very, very common. And most of the time, if you get blue dark matter Fat Carbon, it has almost no blue in it at all. There's little pops of nice blue, but almost none. And you bring that over and compare it to this, and there is just infinitely more blue. Now, obviously this is higher contrast because of how dark the darks is, because there's so much spot that is just dark, but it could also just be the finishing. Both of these have a relatively matte finishing, but this is a little bit more polished. This is potentially, if you polish this up, it would look a little bit darker and higher contrast, especially if you like oiled it in some way. But the big thing to me is just look at how much blue there is in this. That's beautiful. It's actually blue. It's finally actually blue. I love blue, and I'm always hesitant to get blue dark matter Fat Carbon because it's just not blue. It's mostly black. So I really, really love to see this. And over here, like I said, this is very similar to the Fat Carbon name brand stuff. And so whoever is making this for Bestech, they're doing a very, very good job at it. One of the very few things that is still going to be changing compared to this and the production version is that the pivot is going, like the ratio of this pivot collar to the pivot itself is going to change. So the overall size here is going to stay the same, but the inner circle, the pivot part, is going to get 1 millimeter wider in diameter, and the outer circle is going to shrink in inner diameter by 1 millimeter. So it's going to be a thinner ring around a bigger circle, but the overall size and positioning and everything is going to stay the same. same. This in general is one of the things that changed a lot across the prototypes, because the very first renderings and everything like that in the Gen 1 prototypes had a much smaller pivot. Like the entire thing, including the pivot collar, was about the size of this inner circle here, and it looked just out of place. This newer version feels way more balanced, and the overall size and shape and everything, I think it looks great. One thing I would say is, I don't know, I'm kind of torn on this. Because this is a bright, shiny thing right here, it makes some sense to have it echoed with this shininess, but I would personally probably make these black the same way that they are black over here. So you can see that on this gold, it still kind of stands out, but compared to these shiny, bright, shiny, silvery ones, I think these black screws just kind of blend into the black background of the carbon fiber a lot better. And on this colorway, oh man, I love that he made the pivot collar pop like that. Oh, yeah, this is very, very well done. I'm not personally one who buys yellow toned things for my collection, but I do really like the aesthetic, and the yellow and black together. Ooh, that looks really, really good. I'm someone that usually does not like logos on the grinds of knives. I don't know, it's just a little bit of a pet peeve, but I will say that Justin's logo here for High Grain Designs, I really, really like it. It's just a cool looking logo, and it's so small and so kind of like lines up and down that I honestly don't mind it. It's the kind of thing that I often don't even like notice it. And there isn't really anywhere else he could put this easily. I guess he could maybe put it right there, or he could like put it there, but that would look kind of weird. And so all told, this is one of the few times that I give it a pass, you know? I still would probably prefer if there was no branding on this whatsoever, because I like completely sterile knives. But if you got to put it somewhere, this is not a bad place to put it. And there really isn't anywhere fun to hide it that you could do. Some people put things on clips. Kind of hate logos on clips. Some people hide it in the like lock bar relief, but the way that this bolster lock is doing, that there is no lock bar relief. So yeah, I don't know where else he could put it. And like I said, it's so small, and the specific logo being vertical lines like that means that it feels kind of fitting with these vertical lines of that belt satin. So yeah, I don't mind it at all. So continuing back with this handle part, one of the big things that changed between Gen 1 and Gen 2 is this really significant chamfer. The first version had a much, much smaller chamfer, which wasn't part of the CAD. The CAD said have a big chamfer, and they just kind of messed up when they translated it to their actual, like the CAD that they then used through the CAD CAM system to actually run their machines. And that's actually, I should have said that at the beginning. One of the really cool things about this is that Justin did all of this design in CAD himself. Like he did 3D CAD design this entire way himself. And part of this was a project to learn CAD in the first place. And so it's just really neat. There's so many people out there that just kind of like sketch something on paper and say, hey, OEM, will you make this? No. Justin designed every single aspect of this in 3D CAD himself first. Now, of course, Bestech is going to do their own conversion to their own CAD in order to make it so that they, like I said, that their CAD CAM system can successfully use that to control a CNC machine. But like I said, Justin actually did all of this. So anyway, yeah, so there's a really significant chamfer along the outside, and it feels really, really nice. One thing that they've done really, really well is these transitions. I already talked about this corner here, but ooh, yeah, you don't feel that. Oh, that is really, Bestech is putting out fantastic work these days. And it's just, oh, it's a really nice soft curve there. I like that. Ooh, this is another fun thing. So back when Justin was just showing me the original CAD sketches that he was doing, this was a completely flat knife. And so one of the things I pushed really hard for was for him to learn how to do contouring in 3D CAD so that he could make this a contoured knife. And so while I will say this does not look dramatically contoured, it's because it's so spread out. It's actually sloping quite a bit. Like the difference between the thickest part in the middle and the thinnest parts out of the edge is pretty darn significant. It's just spread out over such a wide distance here. This is a very tall handle that it doesn't look bowed out, but that is enough in your hand when you combine it with this significant chamfer on the outside that this feels contoured. I'm so sick of knives that feel like they were designed in 2 dimensions and then just kind of extruded upward, and they feel like a little brick in your hand. And this doesn't. This feels hand-filling in this really, really nice way. I love it. I love that. It's great. Okay, what's another change that happened? Ooh, yeah. So this newest version has this fully wrap around backspacer. The original version cut up here, and I understand why he did it. when you look down the knife on the original version, you could see the hollow grind. And I love that on knives. I get it. I get the appeal of that. But personally, it really bugged me that you could look through here and kind of see the hollow back part back here, because with the Backspacer ending right about there and this sticking out further, it looked like there was like wings sticking out the back. It just looked wrong to me. And so this version feels so much better. Yeah. Look at the little chamfer everywhere. Yeah, they did a really, really nice job on this. Okay, I have smaller hands, and this is the kind of knife that, oh man, like look, I can hold it all the way back here and get all 4 fingers on and not even use this. I can technically do that, but what feels natural is to put these fingers right there and have this one full back there, and this feels so comfortable. This is the kind of thing where these specific shapes, just your hand melts into and wraps in. But if you want to choke up, this is very, very comfortable. You've got the full width surface here, and one thing he was careful to do is keep it so that this is flat across this entire space, that you have that, yeah, you can push on that whole way. And if you look, yep, just like on the Gen 1 prototype, they've knocked this corner off just enough that if you kind of cramp up against it, it doesn't feel like it's going to puncture you at all. That little corner doesn't push in. But this is a broad enough space that even if you have much bigger fingers than me, you can still put your finger up there and feel like you're really up close to the blade. But if you do choke back, yeah, this is the grip that I think most people are going to use for like pushing through like big sheets of cardboard or whatever they're cutting through, except, ooh, that's the other grip. That's the other grip right there. So what I'm doing is anchoring my finger against this spot right there, and then anchoring my back 2 fingers against that spot right there. So I feel really locked in. My thumb has this nice kind of locating position. This is sticking out barely. It's mostly a flush pivot, but it sticks out just enough that you can feel it as an indexing spot. So you know that your thumb's in the right spot, and that position, tremendously locked in, tremendously comfortable. Ooh, yeah, that'd be really nice. Now I said I was going to talk about this lock bar pressure. One of the things that he changed between Gen 1 and Gen 2 is how basically he wanted it to be a stronger detent. Now, I don't know exactly, because I don't have the other one on hand. I can't compare and see exactly what they changed to make it a stronger detent. It could be that they made this slightly thicker, and so this is slightly stiffer. It could be that they just bent it over more on these versions and made it so that it's just pushing further. I'm not sure, because this is still a very springy lock bar, which is nice. One of the side effects of it being a springy lock bar is that it's yeah. So this knife being hollow ground like this takes a lot of that like kind of meat out of the blade, but this is a thick enough blade overall. And because this flat goes all the way out to the edge, it means that the center of mass on this knife is further forward, especially with this big hole right here. So even though they're doing things like I said, hollow ground, and even though they're doing things like this fuller here, this is the kind of thing where the center of mass is far enough out and there's enough mass in this blade. Like look how chunky that tip is right there. That corner, like it's very tight down there, but chunky up there. That means that there is a good amount of weight on this and it's far out. So even though that this is actually moderately tight right now, yeah, oh, that feels good. Now I'm curious. I wonder, I know that on the Gen 1s, tuning this could impact it. Let me see. I think that's a T8. Let me see real quick if this is true of the Gen 2s as well. Back that out just a tiny bit. Oh yeah, now we've known. Oh, see, yup. Oh, yes. Okay, that's what I was hoping for. So this, yeah. Okay, so this right now has 0 blade play. Like this is very, very bank faulty, but I backed this out just the tiniest little bit. So this is still tight. It's just not, it's like, this definitely not loose right now. It's just not cranked down. And now there is so little friction in this that when I do this, it's free fall. What that means is that if you're the type of person that likes a guillotine knife, as is, you can tune this so that this is a guillotine knife. Or you can tighten it just enough and it does that kind of like gentle float home thing. I'm the type of person, okay, I should say, this is my favorite kind of guillotine knife because it doesn't immediately fall when you start to bring this up. Like, it's not chasing my thumb. I could probably make it chase my thumb, but it's the kind of thing where you lean it and it falls. And that to me is really, really important in a guillotine knife because guillotine knives can be kind of scary. And so the fact that this stays in place just long enough for me to kind of lean it means that I don't feel like I'm ever going to cut myself on this. I still have to kind of intentionally close it, but once I start leaning it, then it just falls. Ooh, I like that. Okay, this is something that has mostly stayed the same. I think the jimping has changed just a little bit. This is, yeah. So the jimping on the Gen 1 was doing a thing where it wasn't quite gripping me in the direction I was trying to move. This is very nice and grippy. Ooh, I love this jimping. Yeah, this is one of the kinds of jimping that I really, really like, where what it is it's shallow but crisp jimping. Crisp means that it gives you traction. Shallow means that it's not hard at all to push on this. It's not painful at all to push on this. Like, you can push really, really hard and you're not going to sink in anything and jab in a way that is like painful. So this is the kind of thing that is gripping really easily. Ooh, but is not at all painful. This is a broad knife. I suck at doing this on reach around and broad knives. Oh, yeah. So this knife in general is broad in this dimension, and because I have medium glove size hands, it's hard for me to reach around. My hand's just literally not big and long enough to reach around a knife this size without turning it kind of at me, which means that the blade comes where my finger wants to be. So I have a difficult time reach around flicking knives like this. Let me see if I can get this to work. Oh, see how it almost hit me in the finger? You can do it. I think if you have bigger hands, you can get this to work probably easier. For me, this is going to be that kind of flick. That works really, really well. Yeah. So the Gen 1, I had such an incredibly fun time playing with. It's just especially, I tuned it like this. Other people, let me tune this back down. Other people will purposely tune this a little bit tighter. And then you have, even that still pretty float home. Oh, I love that. But this is the kind of knife that when I had it, even though it's bigger than I typically go for, it's just really fun to play with. Works so well in all the different kind of flicking positions. Yeah. Okay. Grip-wise, Ergos. This clip is pretty long, and that was one thing, the feedback I gave him is that it's a bit longer than I would expect. Just kind of visually, it's a bit long. It's also not the deepest carry, but this is something that he pushed really hard for. He pushed Bestech to try and change the way that they're doing the mount back here, to make it so that this would be shallower and could be pulled back a little bit. And Bestech, after a bunch of back and forth, basically said no, that they said that it wouldn't be secure enough if they changed it down to only one screw and a post or whatever. Bestech basically said no. Partly what it comes down to is the fact that this is a bolster lock knife, which means that this can't sit into this the way that on some knives, if it's like a complete titanium frame lock, you can sink the clip in a way that makes it sit, have like rigidity in that direction. Basically, Bestech said this is as deep as it's going to go. So what you have on this is about that much sticking out of your pocket. And because of how broad this is at the top, yeah, I mean, that's a wide chunk of knife. It's not that bad in terms of depth, but it's a really wide chunk of knife sticking out of your pocket. So if this is the kind of thing that really bugs you, if you want something that completely disappears in your pocket, this just isn't going to do it for you. But I gave Justin the feedback that this is a pretty long clip, but importantly, it somehow doesn't stick into my hand the way that long clips sometimes do. You can see that where this is landing is in this pad of my hand, and sometimes when things land right there, it feels jabby, like it's super poking into me. And this one is not doing that at all. Partly that's the shape right here. I think aesthetically, this shape echoing this shape looks really, really nice together. But functionally, what this is doing is making this kind of sit against the pad instead of jabbing into the pad of my hand. And so this actually feels really, really nice. Now, if I choke up even further, Now it's back behind that line, and now I don't really feel it at all. So here, I can tell it's there, but nothing about it is pokey in a way that it's not that I can feel it, but I don't feel it in a bad way. Now, one thing that I think is done really, really well, and this is something that I talked with him about on the CAD files and that Bestech nailed, is the actual like shape and geometry of this clip portion down here. Like if we look, you can see that this is curved in on all of these dimensions, and yet, but it has a wide flat spot contact part on the bottom, but it's curved here, it's curved there, it's curved there, it's curved there. So it's ramped in all the dimensions. And I love clips like this. The fact that it's making a wide enough contact spot means it's not going to like wear out your pocket by putting all of the force in one tiny little spot. But the fact that it's curved in all those dimensions means that it's not going to snag. You can slide this out of your pocket easily. Actually, I haven't done it on this exact one, but the clip looks exactly the same as the previous one. Let me try it real quick. Effortless, yes. So you can slide this into your pocket really, really easily, but more importantly, you can slide it up kind of at an angle. Like if you're the type of person that's not pulling exactly straight out, but kind of up like this, it will flow. Your pocket material will flow in under this ramp in a way that it would just completely snag on clips that have a perfectly straight wall here. So these are the kinds, like I said, Justin came to me because he knows I nitpick about this kind of stuff, and he does too. And these are the kinds of little design details that have just been really well thought out on this knife. What else do I want to talk about? Carry brings me to weight. This is not a light knife. I don't know what these are going to come in at. It feels like it's over 4 ounces for sure. 4.65 ounces. So yeah, this is not light. And if you are measuring purely off of the blade length, then a 3-inch blade to 4.6 ounces is definitely well over the ounce-inch mark by a lot. But like I said, this is more of like a full-size handle knife. And so this is really the kind of thing, the handle on this is the size that you would expect from a significantly larger blade, at least 3¼ up to maybe 3.5-inch blade. Actually, even a little bit more than that. And so by that standard, it's a little bit less surprising, but there's an important thing. Weight on a knife, well, weight on a knife definitely matters, like outright weight and independent of anything else matters if you have stuff like gym shorts on. You're never going to get around that. But in any other circumstance, the weight itself is less of an issue and it's more about the distribution of the weight. And so the balance point on this is something he worked hard to achieve. Yeah, the balance point is exactly where you want it to be, which means that if you're in the standard grip that this wants you to put in, like this is just what feels most comfortable, it's exactly where your index finger is, which means this feels perfectly laid out across your hand. There's no sense that any part is swinging around. It doesn't feel back heavy, it doesn't feel front heavy. It is perfectly balanced. And if you choke up, the balance point is now right behind your finger, which means again, this feels so well balanced. And because the blade is not all that long to begin with, you can really easily choke even all the way up to the tip up here. And your fingers, the tip is lining up with your fingers, and you can do really fine detail work with this, and it totally makes sense in your hand. One of the nice things is that it's very, very skeletonized in here. A lot of times, bolster locks aren't skeletonized at all. People think that by just making this thinner material that they don't need to skeletonize anything, but let me see if you can, if I shine some light in here. Yeah, look at these really big pockets back there. And even on this side, it's pocketed too. So I love seeing that. So few people skeletonize bolster locks, but that's how he's getting this really, really perfect weight distribution. And how he's getting it down to only 4.6 ounces on a knife that is, like I said, a full-size handle, full hand-filling feel, and a thick blade stock. Knives that filling tend to weigh even more than that. What else would I want to talk about on this? I don't know. You got everything you'd want. You got the lock bar insert, you got the over travel, although this acts as an over travel as well. Oh yeah, closing. How does this close? There's a little tiny nub right here that if you have your thumb up at the front of this, it's going to fall to your thumb right there. And this is another thing that I worked hard with him to get this detent ball position, the contact position of the detent ball early, which means that you are really easily past that detent ball. If this nub is touching your finger, you're past that detent ball. So that contact point, I haven't measured it because I just opened it, but that is a really nice early. I would imagine that's probably about 8 to 10 degrees, just looking at it. And so this will fall to your thumb in that spot, and you're up past the detent ball already. What happens if I'm further back? What falls to my nail? Oh, hey, check that out. Good, that's something I didn't remember from the original. If you're further back, what's falling to my nail is this spot. So wait, that caught on that still? Yeah. So it's a little bit ooky, but this is the kind of knife that does still safely fall to my nail without making that blade come anywhere in contact with me. And again, on knives like this, especially if they have a heavier blade, I always position my thumb pointing upward to unlock instead of like this kind of thing. I know Lefty always does this where he puts it coming at an angle like this and that's sticking his knuckle right up at it. I come up and it will fall to that, or if I come down, it'll fall to that. Both of them are safe. That's nice. I love that. What else is there to talk about on this? Every little thing is chamfered. Nothing is sharp. Yeah, I don't know. I really like how this turned out. And this feels a lot more refined and finished than the Gen 1. The Gen 1 felt great, but this Gen 2 really does feel fantastic. I don't know. So what I don't know is the exact drop date, the exact pricing, any of that. I'll ask Justin if he knows that stuff already. I don't know if he's even come to that conclusion himself. Okay, quick update from the future. The pre-order is officially starting May 18th. Go to highgrainknives.com. That's where the pre-order itself is going to be happening, but it's also where you can go right now to find information about all the different configuration options, the pricing info, the technical specs. It's also where you can sign up for a newsletter, which is definitely going to be the best way to stay up to date as the drop approaches, but also as Justin releases new things down the line. Again, that's highgrainknives.com. I mean, he has High Grain Designs. He has that Instagram account, but because Instagram views it as a leather goods account, whenever he's tried to post knife content there, they immediately shut it down. It's Instagram being Instagram, and everyone who is in the knife community is intimately aware of how kind of overreactionary and sensory that they're being towards knives right now. So instead of posting knife content to his High Grains Designs account, he posts it to his High Grains EDC account. And I know that can be confusing to people, but whatever reason, I guess just because it's been a knife account from the beginning, that Instagram doesn't seem to care over there. So that's where he's been posting most of like the pictures and stuff like that. But he also has a website and a mailing list that you can sign up for. I'll link all of that stuff down below so you can go check this out. The drop is going to be coming pretty soon, I believe. It's going to, I believe, be a pre-order drop. That's my understanding. And I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I don't know how much this is going to cost, but this is Best Tech doing really, really good work. Best Tech these days is right up there with Riot in terms of putting out exceptional stuff. And this is exceptional. So very cool knife. If you like the style of this, and if you're into, it's not a big knife, it's not a bulky knife, but bigger and bulkier than stuff that I typically do, this is the type of knife that feels your hand, feels great in hand, and is designed to be a good, sturdy, real work knife. I think this is going to appeal to a lot of people. I think it's really cool. And like I said, it's just been incredibly fun seeing this knife come from just CAD to an actual physical object that feels so clean and refined now. This version genuinely feels spectacular. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Justin, for sending both of these my way. I should actually, before I completely sign off, I should just let you see this blacked out version a little bit more. Yeah, anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you, Justin, for sending both of these my way. I'm so excited for this, and I'm so proud of you, man. You've done a really freaking cool job here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.